4 years ago, Republican Governor Bob McDonnell, whose campaign you chaired, won approval of a plan for road maintenance, highway construction, and mass transit funding, especially in the Hampton Roads area and in Northern Virginia. Now, you've criticized your opponent for supporting that measure, specifically the tax increases that financed it. My question is, was that measure good for Virginia? And as governor, how would you finance transportation?
Yeah, let's be clear. I didn't criticize him for the transportation, but what I criticize him for is a long record of supporting tax increases in the General Assembly and everywhere else, for that matter.
I'm glad you cleared that up.
Not just I had a lot of my supporters in the General Assembly voted for that package. My friend Bob McDonnell obviously led the charge on it. The Lieutenant Governor voted for it as a state senator. People voted their districts on that bill, and I respect that. But a lot of my supporters who voted for it didn't support putting a new tax on tanning beds or increasing fishing fees or support a medical device tax, a health insurance tax, or an increase in the personal income tax and the Affordable Care Act that the Lieutenant Governor supports. And so this is about who's going to be for reducing taxes or for higher taxes as the next governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia. I am for a 10% across-the-board rate cut. A lot of those supporters of mine in the Assembly who voted for it are for that too, and he is not. I will make sure we implement the funding for transportation in a much more careful way and in a way that gets more bang for our buck, because unlike the Lieutenant Governor, I will not require and impose project labor agreements and prevailing wage requirements on the contractors who do these projects, which does reward labor unions, but it does not, it drives up the cost of the projects, and then we're not able to get as many projects implemented. And I support a lockbox for our transportation funding to make sure that we are putting our transportation dollars into transportation. So if I'm governor, we're actually going to get more mileage out of that money, literally, than if the Lieutenant Governor is elected governor.
Mr. Northam responds.
Now, this is interesting to hear how this process has evolved, because I believe, and I don't want to misquote you, you called me an angry liberal for supporting what you called said was the largest tax increase in the history of Virginia, which was the transportation plan. So I had the attack coming in, and then when he realized that people were saying, well, you know, that was actually a bill that was put on the table in 2013 by Governor McDonnell, and it had bipartisan support. So then he said he wouldn't repeal it if that option came up. And then he was talking, and this is what I read in the paper, so I hope it's accurate.
Oh, I'm sure it must be then.
Yes, sir. That he was talking to a Republican colleague in Virginia Beach, and after that conversation, Mr. Gillespie said, well, if you all support it, I support it. Now, I know you lawyers like to use terms, and I guess we would call that duplicity. But on the Eastern Shore, where I'm from, we call it talking out of both sides of your mouth. And we don't need people that stick their finger up and see which way the winds are blowing. We need people that are firm in what they believe in. And I will tell you, as a business owner, having supported the ports, having supported Dulles Airport, there is nothing more important than transportation as we build the new Virginia economy. And I hope Governor Baliles is in the audience, but you know, we hadn't had any new revenue for transportation since 1986. Now we have billions of dollars coming into the Commonwealth of Virginia, and I suspect every one of you, when you drove to the homestead, used some of the new roads that we're funding with this. So transportation is important. And yes, I was proud in a bipartisan way to support the 2013 McDonnell transportation plan.
Transportation is an issue everywhere in the Commonwealth. Everywhere I go, I talk about transportation. You know, we say when you're in Southwest Virginia, it's an hour between towns. When you're in Northern Virginia, it's an hour between towns, but the towns are 5 miles apart. It's something we've got to address in both places, and we've got to get the most out of our transportation dollars. And as I noted, I will implement the funding for transportation much more effectively than will the Lieutenant Governor, because I will not impose government-mandated project labor agreements with the labor unions or prevailing wage requirements, and that drive up the costs of these projects, and therefore we can do fewer projects. I'll make sure we spend that money more efficiently, get that money out the door. I've also got a transportation plan I will be unveiling this summer. Detailed plans, go to my website, edforvirginia.com. You can see my detailed policies. Unlike the Lieutenant Governor, you can see press releases there. On mine, you can see plans, and transportation will be one of them. But we will get bang for our buck, more mileage out of our money with my approach to transportation funding than with the Lieutenant Governor's if he's elected. That's a fact.